Welcome, everyone. We will get started in 2 minutes. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Crystal Fleischman, Marketing Manager for New England Excess Exchange. Before we get started, I want to thank USLI for presenting today's webinar. I would also like to mention that we have muted all participants and we will be recording this session. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A and we would be happy to answer them. We will do our best to answer them immediately or at the end of the presentation. I would also like to take a moment to introduce our organization. New England Excess Exchange is a managing general agency and wholesale broker. We write in 11 states, including all of New England, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. USLI is one of our several in-house binding markets. Today we'll be highlighting some great options for insuring nonprofit risks with USLI. If you do not see the coverage you're seeking in this webinar, our agency may be able to help place your business with another market if there's a better fit for your client's needs. Please do not hesitate to reach out to New England Excess Exchange directly for a quote where needed. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Andrew Guido, Senior Underwriter and Product Leader at USLI, who will be taking over presenting this webinar. Andrew.
Thank you, Crystal. It's great to be here. Thanks for everybody for joining today. I'm Andrew Guido. I'm a Senior Underwriter and Product Leader at USLI, so really great to partner with New England Excess Exchange. And one of the things I want to do today is, of course, talk about the nonprofit business opportunity. And I think we have some really great, exciting things going on with nonprofits. And it's a market that a lot of people don't really think about on a day-to-day basis. But just a quick agenda. The goal today is to help grow business. That's what we're all here for. So I want to review the opportunity for nonprofits, understand the different types of nonprofits and what they need for underwriting, the coverages that a nonprofit would need. They're doing many different things, serving many different people, especially with the pandemic and everything going on. Everybody's trying to help somebody out. How to market and sell the right coverages, and then the big thing I want to talk about toward the end is an instant phone quote option. So the great thing about our partnership with New England Excess Exchange is that we do have this option to be able to get quotes out there very quickly. So just to touch base real quick on the overall opportunity. So it's estimated that there's over 2.4 million registered nonprofit entities in the US. And that's not even counting non-registered nonprofits. So that number is really a lot higher. Over 2/3 of those probably have revenues less than 500,000. So most nonprofits are fairly small. and it is one of the fastest growing segments in the country. So at about 5% growth each year. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, we grew even further. So there were a big need for nonprofit organizations to help step up and provide services, which I'll talk about, for people in need, people who lost jobs and everything. So it was really a big growth year last year. Just some over 500 classes that we focus on. I'm not going to discuss each one, but some of the big ones: houses of worship, youth mentoring, um, caregivers, senior centers, counseling, referral services, drug and alcohol services. You'll see the fraternal clubs, social clubs like American Legions, VFWs, thrift stores. So just to name a few. And how can USLI and New England Access help? Well, my team, I focus specifically on nonprofits every day. So we have products with specific coverages for nonprofits. The other thing is we try to provide as many coverages as possible, all on one policy specifically for nonprofits. So our whole kind of tagline is, one policy, one application, one underwriter. So you don't have to go to multiple underwriters to get multiple coverages for the nonprofits. And again, there's not many organizations or companies out there that you can actually get a nonprofit organization, get them a quote over a phone. So issues for insurance with nonprofits. I mean, the big thing is nonprofits are always trying to help people out. So they're always getting involved in different types of services. They may be doing some counseling one day, have a food bank the next day. They're really involved in many different things. And again, their whole goal is to help people out. So they have a variety of operations, access to coverage. I mean, a lot of them don't really know where to get insurance coverage. They're not really always business savvy, thinking about risk management. They don't understand the gaps in coverages they may have. So if they have a general liability policy, what other exposures may they have? And just poor awareness of their own exposures. Just a little example, I was talking to a customer last week, and they had an insured that was going to do some races with golf carts to raise money. So that's pretty big exposure. Probably not the best thing to insure, but make the customer aware, the insured aware, that racing golf carts really presents a very big exposure, especially general liability wise. So are we covered? So a lot of people think, automatically go to general liability as the main coverage. So, your slip and fall, libel, slander, product completed operations. But here's a lot of the coverages that they're many times missing out on. If they're going to have a special event, do they have coverage for that? Think about houses of worship and potential abuse issues, along with youth mentoring. Errors and omissions coverage. So we do see a lot of counseling services. Do they have professional coverage to cover any errors for their counseling service? Directors and officers liability. So this would be for the board of the nonprofit. I always recommend, if anybody is ever on the board of a nonprofit, make sure there's some directors and officers liability coverage that's going to protect you personally. So that's going to be for mismanagement, misappropriation of funds, maybe improper decisions. And another coverage many people fail to really think about for nonprofits is employment practices. So they think, well, we just have volunteers, strictly volunteers, so we don't need employment practice coverage. So we do see claims even from volunteers on the employment practice side. And there's also third-party discrimination and harassment type claims. So let's say it's a business membership group and they don't let somebody in, and that person decides to sue saying they were discriminated against. That would be a third-party discrimination and harassment coverage exposure. So the great thing at USLI is we have coverages to cover all those exposures. So general liability, We can include abuse and molestation on most of our products. We can include that professional liability, hired non-owned auto coverage, the directors and officers and employment practices, property. Most of our products, we can include event liability coverage on the annual policy. Liquor liability, so think about those social or fraternal clubs where they may have a bar exposure, and even special events where they have a liquor exposure. And we can also provide umbrella coverage over primary policies, not only USLI, but we can go over other carriers' primary policies also. And again, one of the big coverages that a lot of people do kind of overlook that I want to highlight just a little bit more, the nonprofit directors and officers coverage and employment practice. So we offer this coverage for small startups, all the way up to large organizations that may be bringing in 30 million in revenue a year. So just some of the coverage highlights there. One of the things unique to USLI and our nonprofit D&O coverage is our lifetime occurrence reporting provision. So that provides former board members kind of the peace of mind for any decision or actions they made in event that back in the day when they were on the board, they purchased nonprofit D&O coverage from USLI, but their successor failed to maintain that D&O coverage on a claims made basis. So if somebody sues, we're providing occurrence coverage for the prior directors when that USLI policy was in place. Can offer separate limits of liability for both the directors and officers and employment practices, unlimited defense cost outside the limit of liability. So our policy is duty to defend, and what we found is that a lot of lawsuits against nonprofit boards, many times may be frivolous or don't go anywhere. We don't pay damages, but we pay a lot of defense costs. So that defense cost is outside the limit of liability, so it's not going to eat into any of your damages paid coverage. We provide full prior acts coverage, so anything that happened prior to the USLI policy, any unknown issues that had happened, we would have full prior acts for those potential acts of error. And another great thing, especially for nonprofits, we do include a data and security endorsement. This is $50,000 sublimit for each of the following. So data breach, and as we know, with technology, especially with COVID and everything, everybody going to Zoom, a lot of nonprofits aren't really tech savvy. So we provide some data breach coverage, identity theft, workplace violence, and kidnap coverage, all under that data security endorsement. So just some industry segments that we focus on, and I'm not going to go too in depth on this screen, but as I said, fraternal clubs. So think about your VFWs, your Masonic lodges, sports organizations, whether it's youth or even adult leagues, arts and culture. So think about your theater groups, your music groups. Social services, our widest class, and I'll go more in depth on our social service coverages. Houses of worship, many different options there. One of our fastest growing groups, community associations. So think about your homeowners associations, your condo associations, and then a growing segment are business associations and charitable organizations that I'll get more involved in. So just to touch on houses of worship and the opportunity. So a lot of people think that, when I first read this information, I thought that, there's probably 100,000 coffee shops throughout the US. Really, it's only about 12,000. McDonald's, only 14,000. Pizzerias, looks like in the US that we really like our pizza, 61,000. Many people are surprised to know that there's about 350,000 houses of worship out there, and they grow at about a rate of 4,000 a year. So we have a broad appetite for houses of worship, up to 30,000 square feet. There's no designated premise endorsement, so we're covering, if they have meetings off-site of their primary location, we're going to cover that. We cover events coverage up to 1,000 attendees automatically on the general liability form. We can cover a parsonage exposure, so this would be usually in churches, larger churches. The priest or the leader of the church may have a residential house near the house of worship, so we can cover those. We also see a lot of churches that get involved in thrift stores or soup kitchens, maybe an overnight retreat or two. Those are exposures we can consider. Any construction type, PC 1 through 10. And we do see a lot of older churches, synagogues, in temples, especially in the Northeast. So we have no age restriction on the age of the building for the property coverage. So again, some of the specialized coverage, the big thing, abuse and molestation, up to $1 million for houses of worship. That's really big, along with the pastoral professional coverage up to $1 million in coverage. So the pastoral professional coverage would be for those leaders of the church, maybe the priest, the mom, they're giving the counseling service to their congregation, and that would be the professional liability exposure for them. Diving into nonprofit social service organizations. So these are all around us. They exist in every community. And again, this grew even faster than our houses of worship last year due to, I think, primarily the pandemic, because there's a lot of these organizations that are providing direct services to those people in need. And just some of the common examples that we see and write quite a bit of. So think about your homeless shelters, your abused adult shelters, drug and alcohol programs. Unfortunately, we're seeing a big uptick in these where they're giving counseling services, caregivers, non-medical. We can consider those. So people helping out, especially elderly who are staying in their homes, and they just need help with maybe their laundry, need a ride to go on to their doctor's appointment. So a lot of food banks, group homes, and really a big increase in youth services too, whether it's a youth community center or science and education type programs for the youth. Again, for all these products, we can consider new ventures. They do not all have to be 501c3 registered, so we will consider a nonprofit organization even if they're not 501c3 registered. For our social service, our low minimum premium of $735 in most states. A few states we do have a lower minimum premium of $500. And what does that include? So again, similar to houses of worship, we're going to automatically include special events up to 1,000 attendees. And with the social service, the basic cover includes the general liability. We also offer a separate limit for errors and omissions coverage, because a lot of times these groups are doing some counseling services and professional services. We can do abuse and molestation up to $1 million also. And again, one thing I want to focus on here too is with our social service, we do see higher non-owned auto exposure for client transport, and that's definitely something we can consider under this. And don't forget about the umbrella coverages that we can offer, those higher limits for those organizations that are looking for some additional coverage. Moving on from social service, a growing class we're seeing now, business membership and charitable fundraising organizations. So these are organizations that a lot of us are involved in. We just don't think about it. So I'm sure there are many people who belong to their local chamber of commerce. So I know when going back to my agency days there, I belonged to two at the time. As my children got older, I got involved in my local booster club for the band and the sports teams in my community, alumni association, most for colleges we can consider, for high schools. professional trade associations. Think about your local insurance association. So these are many of the things that we're seeing. So the big exposure there, you're going to see meetings, seminars, networking, the management of donations and charitable gifts, and hosting special events. Because a lot of these organizations don't actually make anything or really sell anything, so they raise money through events coverage. Excuse me, events they put on. So product advantages for this. So for this product, we write it on our preferred package. So it is a business owner's form where we're including the general liability and property together. For a 1.2 million limit, our minimum premium is $395. So that's really great for these smaller fundraising organizations like a booster club. No premises limitation. Again, most of these organizations don't actually own a building or an office. The booster club might be run out of the president's home office, their home office. I know most of us do have a home office right now due to the pandemic. So we cover all offsite meetings and seminars. We do have the ability to include blanket event coverage. So for this product, we can actually go a little bit higher, up to 2,500 attendees. We include host liquor liability. And again, we don't require that this be a 501c3 registered. As long as they're doing nonprofit work, we'll be able to write that. Sports associations. So this time of year, we're actually seeing a really big uptick in sports associations. So think about your youth sports, even adult sports, as states start to open up a little bit more. For unfortunately, COVID hit this group hard last year, but we are seeing quite an uptick this year as hopefully those vaccines get out to everybody. But think about your soccer leagues, flag football, baseball, basketball. So we can consider the camps, clinics, teams, multi-sports associations, and coverage advantages include, we will provide participant coverage on the general liability. As long as they have an accident health policy in place, we can include the participant coverage. Abuse coverage up to $1 million. Assault and battery, a sublimit of 50,000 automatically goes on there. If you've ever been to Little League, sometimes parents get a little more excited than the attendees, the children, and you never know when maybe a fist fight might break out on some of those more excited parents. They get a little too involved in the sports there. Inland marine coverage many times is big for the sporting equipment. And again, special events, most of those are going to be automatically included on our sports associations. Other specialized nonprofit products that we focus on, as I talked about, community associations. So these are your home associations, your condo associations, up to 1,000 units. We can consider those organizations. Many of homeowners association may have a pool or the condo association. So pools we can consider, lakes up to 50 acres. So a lot of different exposures we can consider under the home and condo associations. Arts and culture products. So again, this is for those performing theater groups, music groups. We can consider many of those. Social club organizations. So your VFWs, your Masonic lodges, legions. So a lot of times those fraternal clubs, and many of these will have buildings, and many times they will have bars, so we can consider the liquor liability coverage for those also. So that's a quick wrap up on the products. I don't want to go too deep, but just definitely give you the idea that we see a lot of these. Our team really grew last year for nonprofits. Again, social service, the houses of worship, charities and business associations. And one way to kind of grow your book of nonprofit, because not everybody sees this every day, but it's really a great class to go after. So a couple of lead building resources. So there's a free website. Actually, both of these are free websites, guidestar.org. So if you log on there, you can create your own logon, and there's no charge. You can actually look up nonprofits in your area who have registered their tax information. on this website. A lot of times you can look up information on them and also where they're located. You can look up the nonprofits in your local area on a zip code search or a town or city search. Another one, churchangel.com. So this is similar. It's going to show locations of churches in your area. Also, many states have local or even state associations for nonprofits. That's a great way to network and kind of get your name out there for insurance on nonprofits. Find reciprocal of relationships with service providers, such as an accountant. Maybe the accountant's doing work for a nonprofit. Maybe they can give you some leads. Use your own network. I know many of us maybe a coach or involved in a booster club or a local sports association. Many of us are involved in professional insurance associations or the Chamber of Commerce. So think about those business-to-business networking groups. And also, if you've got not only personal lines clients, but even commercial lines clients, many of these people, many of your customers are already on boards or involved in nonprofits throughout. So wrapping up the product section, how can we get a quote? The one big thing that we really pride ourselves on is being able to get quotes out very quickly at USLI and through New England Excess. And one of the quickest way we can actually quote nonprofits over the phone. So when you dial 888-875-4439, you're going to be connected to one of our 60+ underwriters at USLI, and they'll be able to walk you through any key rating information to be able to generate a premium for not only nonprofits, but also our commercial lines and professional lines products too. So the great thing is that once we go through this, the underwriter will email a quote directly to you along with a pre-filled application. So while they're gathering the underwriting information over the phone, they're entering that into the system, and it actually creates a pre-filled application. Okay, the great thing too is that if we can't quote a risk over the phone, we're going to refer you back to New England Excess Exchange. It may be an organization, let's say it has 5 locations, or let's say it's out of USLI's appetite. New England Excess Exchange has many other markets that they can help us out with or help you out with to get the coverage for those organizations. Again, how does this benefit you? It saves time. So you can get a quote in 5 minutes. You don't need to fill out any applications ahead of time. Flexibility, you can quote from the road. I don't know how many times, because I'm actually on the overflow from our normal instant quote team, where I will actually quote some of these risks over the phone myself. And there's been many times when the agent has actually been in the potential insured's office where they're getting the information directly from the insured. I send them a quote, they've got it on their phone, and they show it to the insured all in 5 minutes. The other great thing is our accessibility. So you can reach a live underwriter on the phone from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And we also have Saturday hours, so 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can also reach an underwriter, because we know a lot of people are doing work on Saturdays too. And I'm not going to go over this whole sheet here, but so you know, we do also have the instant quote for our commercial lines products, our professional lines products, personal lines, and also special events. So I'm not going to list each one, but just so you know, it's not just limited the instant quote to the nonprofits. We can also consider our other lines of business there. And so what are you going to expect after the call? So you get a copy of the quote, again, the pre-filled application. With that, we always attach a point of sale material. It kind of helps you walk you through some of the coverages. Maybe we have D&O coverage on there, and we'll talk about why you need to buy D&O coverage for a nonprofit. New England Excess Exchange will also receive a copy of the quote, so they know that you went on there and quoted it. And then all bind requests would be sent to your contact at New England Excess Exchange. So all the business would be done through them. We're quoting it for you, and the partnership is with them. Most frequent quoted over the phone, as far as products that aren't nonprofits, special events, vacant buildings, trade contractors, janitorial services, less risk. For nonprofits, just so you know, we can quote all our nonprofit products over the phone. So just as a heads up there. And just to prove that we do have over 60 plus underwriters, this is just a quick picture of our whole instant quote team. And then again, we also have regular or other underwriters backing them up if they need some additional help rating up a account for you. So again, get that quick quote. There is also an option to quote most of these products online. So we give you the choice. Do you want to call in? Do you want to submit the business through a regular email? Or you can actually go online and quote at neemaple.com. So this is New England Excess's quoting system where you can get a quote automatically, but we leave it up to you. You don't have to, you can use that, you can call in, we give you the choice. But the great thing is you get the quotes quicker when you call in or quote them right over the phone. And with the web quotes, the great thing is that we do have a web chat. So if you're on there trying to rate something up and you have some questions, you can live web chat with one of our underwriters. They'll help you walk you through that system and turn those submissions into quotes for you, along with the sales materials that you would need for that. So again, as we wrap up here, just remember nonprofit package. Nonprofits are really a big thing and really growing. Don't forget about instant quotes and being able to quote online. And I see we're going to start going through some of the questions there that I see online. Let me see if I can just pull these up if you bear with me for a second here. Yes, one of the questions I see here, does houses of worship include volunteers for general liability, professional liability, and D&O? Yes, we do include volunteers under our policy forms there. So in New England Excess Exchange can answer as far as other markets, but USLI is definitely a market for churches. I'm sure they probably have some other markets too if it's not a fit for USLI. And just looking through questions there. So I'm going to, if anybody else has a question, they can definitely reach out to us or chat in. But we're at the end of our presentation. I'd really like to thank everybody for taking the time to meet with us today. Hopefully you learned something. We'll definitely follow up with you on the webinar here. So if there are any questions, I'm going to turn the final over to Crystal there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrew, and thank you to our attendees for joining us today. If you have any additional questions about today's webinar or New England Excess Exchange, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can connect with us at info@neee.com or marketing@neee.com. You can also give us a call at 1-800-548-4301. And you can learn more about us on our website at neee.com. And thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.